well, let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about something that I hate talking about, to be honest with you. I hate it. We're going to talk about being insufficient, about not being enough, not having enough, not being able to do enough, not being able to give enough, not being enough. Oh, by the way, I'm Virginia. Nice to see y'all. Virginia Harper's, nice to be with you. So I want to talk tonight about the power of insufficiency and the lesson we're going to learn from a child. So you can imagine which gospel we're going to be looking at. Can you take a wild guess? No? Any guess?
The 5,000.
The feeding of the 5,000. So here we go. There are lots and lots and lots of renditions of this in the Gospels. We're going to take the one from the 6th chapter of the Gospel of John. And I'm going to read, this is a familiar passage and it's a long passage, so I'm not going to read all of it word for word, but we'll get you the highlights, okay? And I want you to pretend, I want you to imagine that you are an observer on this hillside, that you're one of the crowd, all right? Here we go. Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee, where a large crowd followed him because they saw the signs he was performing in the sick. He went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. When Jesus raised his eyes and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, he said to Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" He said this to test him, because he knew what he was going to do. Philip answered, 200 days' wages aren't enough for us to be able to get each person even just a little bit. Pause. Philip strikes out. Jesus asks a question and Philip strikes out. Right? Next banner up. Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, said, "There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Andrew's doing better. But then he keeps going, and Andrew says, "But what good is that for all these people?" Jesus said, "Have the people recline." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so the men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed them to those who were reclining, and also as much of the fish as they wanted. When they had had their fill, he said to his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing shall be wasted." Now there's more to the passage, but we're going to stop right there. I have never had a hard time believing that God feeds the hungry. I have never had a hard time trusting that when there is a need, God will provide what is necessary. That's not, for me, the biggest miracle of this story. You know what the biggest miracle of this story is for me, personally? Is that little boy being able to take the little that he had, all he had, 5 loaves and 2 fish. He was a kid, right? But he wasn't dumb. He had his lunch, or his dinner, whatever you want to call it, and he could look and see how many people there were. He could look and see that the math was not going to add up, that this was not going to be enough, that he had insufficient funds. It was not going to be enough. Paul, could you flip it forward for us a little bit? Keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Nope.
That's okay. So we notice the child, and the child gives us an invitation to be as real as we can possibly be. To be able to say, well, this is what I've got. It's not enough, but this is what I've got. So maybe, just maybe, this is what I'm called to hand over. Now, my friends, when I teach, I'm a teacher by trade, and when I teach, I always used to tell my students, I want you to listen with 2 ears. With one ear, I want you to hear what I'm actually saying. But with the other ear, I want you to hear the meaning, the underlying meaning that it has for you, okay? I want you to think about all the things in your life that are represented by the 5,000 hungry people on that hill. All the demands, all the needs, all the people, all the requests, all the jobs, all the responsibilities, all the things on your list of things to do. 5,000 things. And there you are with 5 loaves and 2 fish, if you're like me. And you're like, it's not enough. I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough health, I don't have enough will, I don't have enough kindness. I don't have enough. And what does this child say to us? What does this child say? The child says, so? So what? Why are you looking at the little that you have instead of looking at Jesus? Why are you looking at the lack? Why are you looking at the insufficiency, the inadequacy, instead of keeping your eyes on Jesus? Because what you have will never be enough. It will never, ever, ever be enough. But nobody ever said it had to be. What this child is teaching me, and maybe you, is that what we have to bring to any demand doesn't have to be enough. We just have to turn it over so that God can use it to work miracles. That's all. So, hit it one more time, Paul. We focus on the lack. Yeah, just keep going. Jesus doesn't focus on the lack. Neither does the child. And what if we could change our perspective and see how to focus just a little bit differently? What changes when our focus changes? We have an opportunity to remember what it means to be childlike, and this is what it is. Take a look. Living out of a theology of abundance. Okay, I have too many words up there. There it is. There are so many things we can focus on. The choice is ours, right? There is an image in front of you there that has a lot of things in the field of view. It's got a beautiful mountain, it's got an individual, and it's got an insect. What do we tend to focus on? And I'm only speaking about myself. Maybe it applies to you. Great. What do I tend to focus on? I tend to focus on the things that are wrong, the things that are the one thing that didn't quite go right, the one person that got me so mad today, or that I spoke abruptly to. That's what I remember. And what does the child in the loaves and fishes remind us? Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's too little. That's too little. Can you look at something bigger? Can you look at what Jesus is planning to do with the little that we have? Can we look beyond just our own tiny little loaves and fishes? Because you know what? If you can't, if I can't, then all I'll ever think about is how it's not enough. But if I can look instead at the person who's standing there on the hillside and saying, what you got over there? Let me have it. And I can hand it over to him, then he can do miracles. But the miracle of the loaves and fishes could not have happened without the loaves and fishes. That child had to turn it over, had to first acknowledge, okay, this isn't enough to feed 5,000 people, but what are you gonna do, Lord? What are you gonna do if I hand it over to you? And then we know what Jesus does, right? He makes plenty. He makes it more than enough. He miracles it into abundance. And that's the question for us tonight. is, can we have the courage to live out of a theology of abundance, looking at what God can do with the little we have? Or am I going to relegate myself to a theology of scarcity, where all I do is look and see how I am not up to the task at hand? I don't have enough. I'm inadequate. It's insufficient. I'm imperfect. I can't do it. When we sit there, nothing happens. When we have the courage to listen to the child and act like the child and say, it's not enough for all these people, but what are you going to do? Then we give God the power to work miracles. And here's the beauty of this passage. When they had their fill, Jesus said to the disciples, gather the fragments left over, so that nothing shall be wasted. Have you ever looked back in your life and wondered, what in the world was that all about? What was that experience? What was that heartache? What was that bad situation? What was that all about? What is this child? What is this passage? What does this miracle have to teach us? Nothing's wasted. God can use all of it, and God will use all of it for nourishment, whether for ourselves or for others. So the question of what do we do with our inadequacy is a question of, can we shift our focus? Can we look beyond ourselves and beyond our lack and look at the God who wants to use what we give in order to feed the multitudes? So much so that even when we are lacking, he can look at us and say, yeah, it's okay. I know you didn't have enough. Remember, I made you. I know you don't have enough. It's not about you having enough. It's about you turning it over. You turning over every little thing, whether it's insufficient, inadequate, lacking, whatever it is, hand it over to me. And you will see that when you do that, nothing will have been wasted. It's all working for the greater glory. All of it working for the greater glory of God. That's the gift of the loaves and fishes. So, I don't know, what else do I have here, Paul? Let's see what's there. I think there's actually, okay, it's not gonna come up.
Is that in my list?
No, it's okay, it's okay. I was hoping it wouldn't.
Oh, you're hoping it wouldn't?
I was hoping it wouldn't, so keep going.
Good.
You're good.
Glad you
It did, it worked out great. My little audio visual didn't go through. So here's some questions for us. And these might touch on something a little bit of a nerve. So they might not be necessarily for conversation among us tonight. They might be, I don't know. But it's definitely worth praying about and reflecting on. What part of your own life are you woefully inadequate to deal with right now? Is there a relationship? Is there a situation? Is there a problem? Is there a concern? Is there any area of your life where you don't feel like you're up to the task at hand? If you can't think of anything, I've got a long list for you. You can think of my stuff. How might Jesus be asking you to surrender not what's going to fix the problem, but what you bring to the table? Give it to me. Give it to me. I know it's not enough. Give it to me. Give me the little kindness you have. Give me the little energy you have. Give me the little will that you have, the little mercy in your heart that you have. I'll do the rest. Give it to me. And then the actual question, what in that situation, what is actually being required of you right now? I'll tell you what the wrong answer to that last question is. The wrong answer is, You are not being required to fix it. You are not. So when it comes to these things that seem bigger than our capacity, our ability to do something about them, what is it that God is calling us to do? What is it that God is calling us to give? What is actually required?